School, what's up? And welcome back to Peace Students Online. Last week we started a new series entitled Exodus 14 Red Sea Rules. And it's all about the people of Israel's story of being free from slavery in Egypt. We learned last week that with the help of Moses, God's chosen leader, God freed Israel from slavery. And he parted the Red Sea in the process, but it wasn't all easy. This series is helping us learn 10 ways that we can trust God through the challenging moments in our lives. The first rule we learned last week is that we're all here on purpose. And the second rule was God over everything. That is, God is bigger than everything. And even when things seem impossible to accomplish in our lives, we have to remember that God is in control and we can trust Him to help us. Today I want to start by doing this. Let's take a look at this picture. Now tell me, what do you see? Well, your response to that is going to depend on how you look at this picture. See, if you look at it one time, you might see a duck. But if you take another look, you just might see a rabbit. See, the way we view things matter because we respond to how we see things. For example, if we were playing a game of charades with you and your friends, and you were trying to get your friends to guess what this picture was without them ever having seen this picture, the words or actions that you would use are going to be based on what you see in this picture. And their response is going to be based on your words and your actions. So if you see a rabbit, you're probably going to start hopping around like a bunny or calling out the word Easter. But if you see a duck in this picture, you're probably going to start flapping your arms like a duck or quacking like a duck. See, the same things can apply in our life. We have to choose how we want to see things that are happening to us. And you know, it's not always easy to do that, especially when something happens that hurts us, or makes us afraid, or makes us frustrated, or just seems difficult to accomplish. It's hard to see that even though things look bad, there's still something good to be thankful for. When Israel was leaving Egypt, they were free from slavery, and they were free from Pharaoh, the Egyptian king. But after Israel and Moses left Egypt, Pharaoh realized that he was missing out on a whole lot of free labor. And he wanted to get them back. He changed his mind and he went chasing after them. And he just about caught up to them, and it wasn't looking good for Israel at all. And they were afraid. Let's read about it. Exodus chapter 14 verses 5 through 10 says this. When it was reported to the king of Egypt that the people had fled, the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And the king and his servants said, "What in the world have we done? For we have released the people of Israel from serving us." Then he prepared his chariots and took his army with him. He took 600 select chariots and all the rest of the chariots of Egypt and officers on all of them. But the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he chased after the Israelites. Now the Israelites were going out defiantly. The Egyptians chased after them and all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen, and his army overtook them camping by the sea beside Paharath, before Baal-Zephon. When Pharaoh got closer, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them, and they were terrified. The Israelites cried out to the Lord. When Israel was in this tough and scary moment, the only thing they could see was Pharaoh and the Egyptian army, their enemies, chasing after them. They didn't remember that the same God that freed them from slavery was the same God that led them through the wilderness with a cloud and a pillar of fire. And it was the same God who was with them in this moment that Pharaoh was chasing them. And sometimes we do that in our lives too. We forget that even though something bad or frustrating is happening, that God is with us. And because of that, we can have hope. To remember that Jeremiah 29:11 tells us this. For I know what I have planned for you, says the Lord. I have plans to prosper you, not to harm you. I have plans to give you a future filled with hope. Behind Israel was their enemy chasing them, and things didn't look very good for them at all. I mean, they had their enemy behind them chasing them, and in front of them was the Red Sea. So they looked like they were stuck. But even though it didn't look good, like our Bible tells us in Jeremiah 29:11, God was already making plans to make sure that things would turn out good for them. So our rule for this week is rule number 3. Acknowledge the bad things, but always trust God. So 8th graders, it may be frustrating that you didn't get to have an 8th grade graduation at the school and have all your family come and say goodbye to all of your teachers and your principal and just do all of the things that happen in 8th grade when you're celebrating finally getting to high school. But there's so much good still happening all around you. And for all of you, it might be frustrating not getting to hang out with your friends or go to the mall and just do things the way we normally do them. But I want y'all to do this. Stop and think about all the good things that are still happening, even though we're in some frustrating times. You know, Pharaoh thought he was going to catch up to Israel. And it's kind of like when we're playing a game and we're winning, and we think that it's over because we got it in the bag. But then all of a sudden the competition starts coming back and catching up and making that comeback on us. See, Pharaoh thought that because he was a king and that he had an army, that he was gonna catch Israel and bring them back to slavery. But he was completely wrong about that. I sometimes feel that way when I'm playing the game of Uno, and it's one of my favorite games to play. But just when you think that you're about to win, somebody comes and takes the win. Now, why is that? Well, let's think about it. In the game of Uno, there are just so many ways that you can win the game. And even when it looks like you might have a bad hand, it could actually turn out to be your winning hand. And that's because you have all these draw tools and wild cards, reverse cards. You can play doubles, you can play triples. There's just so many ways that your hand could turn out to be a good hand and a winning hand. Just because things start off looking bad, it doesn't mean that we should lose hope. So we have to begin to trust that the same God who was with us every single day of our life is the same God that is with us when our life gets tough, when our life gets challenging, and when our life gets frustrating. So we have to begin to know, trust, and believe that God is a God who loves us. And He has a future plan for us. And that future is a good one. Sometimes things are looking really good for us. And then you got a hater like Pharaoh that's just coming for you. You just minding your own business, trying to do you, trying to stay out of trouble, trying to do good in school, and here comes a hater trying to get you off track. Well, I've been around long enough to know that there's always going to be at least one hater in your life that's trying to make your good situation feel like a bad one. But let's not worry about them. Let's remember rule number 3. Acknowledge the bad things, but always trust God. Acknowledge when something is making you feel some type of way, but trust God. Trust that God is in control of everything. When we trust God, it changes the way we respond to the things that are happening in our life. So instead of focusing on the bad things, we can respond by thanking God for the good things that we still have and all of the good things that He's planning for us in our future. So this week, let's change the way we're thinking about what's happening in our life. Let's trust that no matter what happens in life, that God is planning something good for us. Now let's remember what Romans 8:28 says in our Bibles, that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to His purpose. So acknowledge the bad, but always always trust God. We love you. Take care. Peace.